Well, hey there. I suppose it's that time of year again. Santa Claus and presents and telling tales about how it all began. My name is Amos, and I aim to guide us on a magical journey through the obscurities of Christmas mythos. These two visions of Christmas cheer beside me are none other than Esther and Bartholomew, and together we shall comprise three muses to tell this tale.
Amos, if I may.
Oh, by all means, Bartholomew.
Folks, before we begin, you should be aware that Brother Amos is a teller of tales, if you catch my meaning. As such, our story takes us not to the hill country of Roman Judea, but to the low country of the American South in the early years of the Great Depression.
'Tis a dark and dreary time into which our Savior is born, and though the trappings of Christmas may look mighty unusual, I promise that this remains a faithful adaptation of the Holy Scriptures.
Nonetheless, this is an odd choice, Amos. I would have preferred a story about, say, I don't know, perhaps a green grouch who finds his Christmas spirit, or perhaps an outcast reindeer with an unusual nose. Or, you know, a city girl who finds herself in small town USA around Christmas time, and wouldn't you know it, she falls in love. Now that's a Christmas story.
Now you listen here, I'm the narrator of this here story. You just stick to playing that old fiddle of yours. You are a musician, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So you know a lot about country music?
Well, I don't like to brag, but I think so.
So tell me this, what do you get when you play a country song backwards?
I don't know, what do you get when you play a country song backwards?
You get your job, your wife, and your truck back.
And that, friends, is what you can expect from this here production. I just wanted to set the bar real low for you.
Oh, come on, you two Philistines don't understand art nor culture. Ain't you never heard of artistic license?
Hey, Esther, what do they call artistic license in church?
Gee, Bartholomew, I don't know. What do they call artistic license in church?
Lion.
Fine, take your shots, but while this here framing device may seem a might unusual to your refined tastes, I'm sure our fine audience will see through to the true meaning of Christmas and the Christ we celebrate herein. May you see him today in a whole new way. Wait a while, eternity, Emmanuel, come ransom me. Ransom John from this old jail, and ransom poor ornery Israel. Well, many Christmas stories begin with Mary and Joseph, the star-crossed family into which Jesus was born. Well, some other stories features others in the cast of Christmas characters like the shepherds, the wise men, even old Herod. But there is one person in the Christmas story don't get near enough recognition. Oh, that's a sad and tragical figure by the name of John the Baptizer.
Amos, nobody comes to the Lord's house on Christmas Day to hear about John the Baptist. You sure you don't want to tell them a story about Frosty or Rudolph?
Now, Bartholomew, I feel like Amos was headed in a more biblical direction. So why don't you just back your old mule up, and if you want to plow, keep her between the ditches. Brother Amos, would you continue, please?
Thank you, Esther. As I was saying, John the Baptist, a man of the cloth, if that cloth was made out of camel's hair. You know, John was talking about Christmas and Jesus long before any of them Christmas cards were. And he didn't do it in the most tender of ways neither. He didn't care if he was a commoner or a king. He told it like it was. Which is why this here tale begins in prison. It was Christmas in prison, and we're headed on down to some dungeon where John the Baptizer is bound. He once preached with fire in the wilderness, but unjust arrest wet your kindling, I guess. Hey, John, why the long face? Surely your cousin will spring you out of this place. Chains out from dark within this cell, and you'll be back in the country preaching about hell.
Boy, he sure ain't got much to say.
That's first. Silent night, lonely. All's not come, and all ain't right. From birth, my mama told me a Savior would spring forth from our family tree. Now the nights when I sleep, it all seems like some distant dream. I'll wait on the film tree.
John, I gotta be honest with you. That's the most depressing thing I've heard you say. I heard you preach on when it was burnt shack.
Speaking of what I
John,
preached
you
on,
can't get up to eating here?
Well,
We
what
brought something locust you like so much.
I'm having a hard time trying to stomach some of this.
We couldn't get you any wild honey, but we brought you some of my mama's marmalade.
Sun's down, sitting on me, starting to think about all that I breathe.
Sure, John. I reckon we can take that message to him. I hope he gets it. He's a king, right?
Well, if he's the king, you better hurry up and prove it. As you can tell by my accommodations, our people could use a change of leadership.
I sure hope you're right. I don't want him getting me with the rest of the chaff, chasing me around with that winnow and fork of his. We'll be sure and tell him you sent us.
That's fine. You won't be surprised one bit either, as we can, don't you know?
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, Mama says I leaped for joy in her womb when he was close by, though I don't feel like leaping for joy much these days. Mom and Daddy, God rest their souls, told me about all kinds of things the Savior would do. Sight to the blind, life to the dead, freedom for the prisoner. But as you can see, some things may just be too good to be true.
Careful, John. You start to sound like your own man.
Visiting hours are over, folks. Quiet, John!
Well, folks, it seems the apple don't fall too far from the tree. You see, John's daddy, Zechariah, well, he's a preacher too. And like old John back there, he too was made to be quiet, which I need not remind you is quite the tribulation for the preaching type. You see, he also had his bouts with doubt and...
Amos, before you get too deep into the obscurities of Christmas mythos, may I make one point?
I don't suppose I can stop you.
I've read my Bible up to including Revelation, and I have yet to see where it says that John the Baptist was in prison on December 25th. That part of the Christmas story seems a bit suspect.
Now, before y'all go quibbling about the finer points of the holiday calendar, I'd just like to point out how the magic of narrative has transported us to another place in time. It's almost as if Brother Anna's over here is our very own ghost of Christmas past, and the two of us, we're just fuses along for the ride.
Well, punch my ticket, Tom Hanks. I don't remember climbing aboard the Polar Express. What kind of Christmas devilry has you wrought upon us here in Amos?
Well, it's old-time religion, bygone hard-time countryside where this priest had a vision, but couldn't believe his eyes. And Lizzie was in the kitchen, hiding her heart behind a bolted door. Zechariah was on a mission, doing the work of the Lord.
got pain and derision, and nothing to show for my prayers. Boy, Zeke, you keep on stepping on toes and you're likely to hobble the whole tape.
Yes, ma'am. Well, you know the good book says the lame will walk. Amen.
Amen. Well, could Lizzie not make it tonight?
No, she wasn't feeling too well.
Well, you tell her we'll keep her on our prayer list.
Thank you.
You need any help closing up around here?
No, I'll be all right. Y'all go on home now. I'll close up here.
Okay, good night.
Good night.
Howdy, Zachariah. Boy, that sure was a barn burner sermon. Hoo-wee, even I felt the flames on that one.
What? Who are you? How'd you get in here?
I'm an angel of the Lord. Y'all ever heard entertain angels unaware?
Right. Like an angel would come and listen to my preaching.
Oh, you may be well unaware of this, but you've been entertaining quite a few of us over the years. But I ain't here to talk about your preaching. Got a message for you.
Sorry, I can't. You're an angel. Why, you ain't even old enough to buy tobacco.
Well, we internal beings don't age quite as quick as creatures do. So speaking of age and preaching, you know your wife Lizzie? She's gonna have a baby. Congratulations, Zachariah. You're an old man 2 times over.
Listen, kid, I don't know who you are or who put you up to this, but number one, you ain't no angel. And you better be glad that you pulled this baby stunt on me and not on Elizabeth. She's been torn up about this for years now.
Well, I do declare, it seems I struck a nerve. But being that I am the genuine article, Yahweh has told me that he's heard Elizabeth's prayers, which is exactly why I'm here. This is good news. Your prayers are answered. You ought to be happy.
Yeah, right. I ought to be happy. This would have been good news 30 years ago. But you see, Lizzie and I have followed into God's plan for us. We're used to that plan. We ain't got no kids, and yeah, it's a sore spot. But it's a sore spot we expect. It's a pain we're used to. So don't you come in here and tell me about no change in plans. We know God's plan for us, and some things are just too good to be part of it.
Zachariah, quiet. I'm Gabriel. I stand in the presence of God, and I've been sent to speak to you and tell you this good news. But now you'll be silent and unable to speak until the day this happens, because you did not believe my words, which will come true at their appointed time.
Is he talking to us?
Looking right at us. You're not supposed to be able to see us, James.
Well, if this were the classical Dickens Christmas carol, that would be a fair assumption. However, as you can tell, we are not in Victorian England, and it does look like he has something to say to us. By all means, Zechariah, what's on your mind?
Oh, hang on. I can read lips. Let me see.
What's he saying?
Be sure to drink your Ovaltine. A commercial.
Zechariah, why don't you get on home to Elizabeth and tell her the good news? I'm sure she's eager to hear from you, in a manner of speaking. What child is this whom angels help to creatures proud and lowly, who hear the plans and reprimand of God, whose work is done slowly? What child is this? The people ask. They all put in their 2 cents. Some thought he claimed his father's name, but then heard his mama Elizabeth say, "This here is John, the voice that calls out from the wilderness. Make way for the living King, Emmanuel, God be with us." What child is this who enters in through virgin meek and lowly, whom angels greet with anthems sweet, the one both human and holy? This here is Christ the King, whom shepherds guard and angels sing. Haste, haste to bring him on, the babe, the Son of Mary.
Cousin Lizzie, I'm here.
Mary, is that? Oh, my goodness! Calm down, John. Why, you certainly never moved like that before. Are you doing a jig for joy or what?
There you are, cousin. It's been too long.
Feel this?
Oh, why is he dancing in
I
there?
do believe he's happy to see you, or maybe he's happy to see his cousin. Blessed are you among all women, and blessed is the child that you will bear. Why, as soon as I heard the sound of your voice, baby John started jumping for joy. Blessed is she who has believed that the Lord would fulfill his promises to her.
Thank you. I don't know if Joseph is going to see it the same way. You see, I figured if anybody knew what to do with an unexpected pregnancy, it was you.
Mary, you know well as I do, the Lord's plans are better than ours. And if he wants to change our plans to be more like his, well, that's a better place to be, ain't it?
I know, just don't change how people look at you and how they walk around you in the streets and start seeing you for the worst. Stop seeing you for how it's always been.
Don't pay them no mind. It don't matter how people talk about you. What matters is who's talking to you. And it don't matter where they walk. What matters is who you're walking with. And it don't matter one lick how they see you. Mary, you are who you are, and you are seen by an eye that sees truer than any of them.
Ma, what a beautiful story. You know, it reminds me of my granddaddy. He always said when one door shuts, another opens. Wonderful man, terrible habit maker.
Well, as the story goes, John the Baptist was born to Zeke and Lizzie in their old age. And 6 months later, Jesus was born in Bethlehem. You know, neither family really expected any intervention from on high, but, well, sometimes the Lord has other plans. And it ain't often that the Lord's plans are particularly easy or comfortable.
Well, Amos, you sure do know how to inspire the Christmas spirit. All this talk of prisons and unexpected pregnancies is warm and toasty inside.
Well, you're going to love this next part.
Next! Next! Next!
Little town of Bethlehem, how soon we see thee light. Above the night and dreamlessly, the silent stars go by. State your name, sir, and where you came from, and those residing with you.
My name's Joseph, and this is Mary. We'll be married soon.
You're not married to this girl, Mary. Looks like
I've got better things to do.
I know, sir. It's exhausting. But this one's interesting in a few looking for a king like you.
What did you say to me? A bigger, better king? I spit orders, check the bling. Ooh-wee. I spit orders again. You watch your mouth, son. I'm from the South, son. King of the ATL, soon to be nation.
So you've been waiting a while. You traveled many miles. Do you want to send them in?
Sure.
We three kings have crossed the sea, come to seek a newborn king. Star before us, hold my chorus,
guiding us on our way.
Did you say new king to the old king? If that's true, that's news to me. But if you find him, come back and tell me. I'd love to worship at his feet.
we assumed that this was the place a king would deign to show his face. Unexpected,
Course corrected,
just a change of plans.
for Christ was born of Mary, and gathered all around, while mortals and the angels keep the watch of wandering love. And in these still streets, chosen, drink God prophetic living, and angel warns as God is born, arrival ray of kings.
Just like that, Joseph woke up Mary and their new boy Jesus, and like a robin headed south for the winter, they hightailed into Egypt. Only lived there about as long as a robin, too.
Exactly, and how long is that?
Well, that's through the common Turdus migratorius, who only lives for a couple of years, which is how long it took for old Herod to kick the bucket.
Of an excruciatingly painful and putrefying illness of uncertain cause serves him right after what he did to all them Bethlehem babies.
Thank you, Bartholomew, for that gory and wholly unnecessary detail. As I was saying, as the course of history goes, things didn't get much better under the new king neither. Herod Antipas was cruel and corrupt.
And that apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
That's right. It's the same old mess in the same old family. Antipas took his half-brother's wife, which didn't set too well with old John the Baptizer. He spoke truth to power, and well, power didn't like that. Poor John sitting in jail, waiting to hear from Emmanuel. Ransom me, ransom us, Lord, if you can, just don't make another change of plans.
What's all that racket about? Sounds like I'm real hootenanny up there.
You know how it is. Just another Herod trample on God's word and the bearer of good news, like they always do. Speaking of good news, you got me for me? What my cousin had to say for himself?
Well, we got some good news and we got some other news. Which do you want first?
Tell me what he said.
What do you mean, John?
Well, here lately I've been a little preoccupied. I haven't been able to get out and smell the roses, as it were. Just tell me the world outside of these four walls.
Well, we just got to fall around for a few days. He was preaching. Folks weren't listening. Repent to sin. He was performing miracles, getting people back their sight, healing the
in the eye and I said, hey, is he the one who was sent, or should we wait for another?
And?
He said to tell you what we saw. The lame walk, the dead raised, and good news is preached to the poor.
You say anything else?
Well, he said one more thing. Didn't make a lick of sense though. But he said, blessed is one does not fall away on account of me. Not even what you talking about.
Well, you know, Yahweh sure kind of has a, I don't know if it's a sense of humor, maybe more of a sense of irony.
Now you ain't making no sense neither.
What do you mean, John?
He was talking about me. I suppose I fell away on account of how I thought he ought to act or how he ought to be. But even if you don't make everything rosy, he's still a king, and a good one at that.
John, it's time.
Well, it's just a change of plans. Seems I played a part in this story after all. It's not the one I thought I would. All those lines loose, deal. Hard times, come again no more.
Let us pause in life's pleasures and count its many tears as we all stop sorrow with the poor. There's a song that will linger forever in our ears. Oh, hard times come again no more. 'Tis the song, the sigh of the weary. Hard times come again no more. Many days you have lingered around my cabin door. Oh, hard times come again no more. There's a pale sorrow widow who toils her life away with a worn heart whose better days are o'er. Though her voice strange and merry, 'tis sighing all the day. Oh, hard times come again no more. 'Tis the song, the sigh of the weary. Hard times come again no more. Many days you have lingered around my cabin door. Oh, hard times come again no more. Many days you have lingered around my cabin door. Oh, hard times come again no more. Time passes, and the world changes, or maybe not so much. There's still Herods in power all over the place. There's still folks a-hurting, lands a-changing. But God always has a way forward. He's always got a people. A kingdom don't look nothing like what folks expect, with a king who takes everyone by surprise.
And that's what old John was proclaiming in the wilderness. Prepare ye the way of the Lord.
You weren't the first one to get in trouble for telling the good news.
That's right. Once Rome caught word of this rising tide of new Jesus followers, oh, they started arresting every believer they could get their hands on. Of course.
I suppose that's where you're taking us now.
Well, there ain't nothing like a little controversy.
Oh, hush you guys. I think they's talking.
Oh, pardon me, ma'am. Do you have a moment? Well, my name is Luke, and I am a physician and a writer. And I've been looking into this, well, let me get a little ahead of myself here. I am looking for a woman named Mary.
You'll have to be a little more specific than that, son. There are quite a few of us Marys in this corner of the world.
Of course. The Mary that I am looking for was the mother of a
What's that? You have to speak up.
Jesus!
Jesus?
Jesus!
Oh, Jesus, you want me to tell you about Jesus?
Well, not me per se. My boss, he's not really my boss, but Theophilus, a rich guy with money to burn, well, he's paying me to compile this report. And I admit, I was a bit skeptical at first, but then my research led me to some interesting... Wait a second. You wouldn't happen to be her.
Whatever made you suspect?
Well, they said that I might find you in there. They also said you were funny. I don't think they meant that as a compliment, though.
Oh, they wouldn't know funny if it hit him with a stick. You want to go over here to set a spell? I'm sure this ain't the kind of conversation you want to have 10 feet from a prison.
Say, what were you doing in there?
Oh, I was just visiting some Jesus old war buddies.
War buddies? So, he was rebelling against Rome.
Not exactly. I believe that's what you writer types call figure of speech.
Well...
Rebel, yes, but not in the kind you're imagining.
Well, I don't get it. The Jews accused him of heresy, and Rome put him down for fear of another uprising, but the fervor surrounding your son, it just seems to keep growing and growing. How is that possible?
Because he was more than a religious leader or a would-be king. What he came to establish was beyond all expectations. The kingdom of heaven he was always talking about, it's a rebel kingdom, you see. It doesn't play by the rules you and I expect a king or kingdom to play by. They're the first or last, and the last or first. The poor are rich, and the proud are brought low. Its gross domestic product isn't measured in dollars and cents, but in faith, justice, and good deeds. Love is its currency.
That's a beautiful picture, Mary. But I must admit, I'm still a bit skeptical that a place like that could really exist in this world, unless, of course, it's another one of those figures of speech.
No, it's quite real, but then again, not in the way you're imagining.
Well, I thought I heard you singing back there.
Oh yes, I suppose I was. Sorry, it's sort of a habit.
Oh, no, it was lovely. I guess I just didn't picture the mother of Jesus singing.
Well, then it might surprise you to know I've written a fair few pieces back in my day.
Really? Would you mind singing one of them?
Well...
Oh, my soul looks in wonder, for in my lowest day, my Savior lifts me from the floor. Now all those who come after will see and celebrate. Oh, my soul magnifies the Lord. All will humble, find His mercy. My soul magnifies the Lord. He is mighty and faithful, now and forevermore. Oh, my soul magnifies the Lord. He has brought down the mighty, He's broken all their thrones, yet shows His goodness to the poor. He has filled up the hungry and given them a home.
Oh, you get the picture. I can't sing quite as high as I used to.
You wrote that?
Oh, yes. It's one of the first songs I wrote, and after all these years, it's the one I like the best.
Yeah. Interesting lyrics. More than a little subversive. He has brought down the mighty. He shows goodness to the poor. He has filled up the hungry. Pardon me for asking, but how can you still sing those lyrics?
Now listen, Mr. Reporter, I may be getting old, but I still have my wits about me.
Oh, no, that's not what I meant.
I know what you meant.
Well, with everything going on in this world, with everything that happened to your son, with his friends and followers being arrested and executed, how can you still believe that this rebel kingdom of his amounts to anything more than tall tale?
You interviewed anyone else for that book of yours yet?
Well, yes, of course, a few.
Well, why don't you read some of them to me? I'm sure they won't mind.
Okay, let's see. Oh, here's one. Yes,
Also wrote the thing you ever saw.
Well, when I was...
Have you ever seen a dead body? The thing you ever saw.
Well, when I was...
Have you ever seen a dead body?
I don't think...
My daddy choked on chick-bone like this.
Children, mind your manners and hush up! Sorry, I just wanted to ask you some questions about Jesus, the prophet from Galilee. I was told that you all received a blessing from him.
Oh, we did, sure as shooting.
I must grow always so important after he blessed me.
And all my words were just washed away. I ain't stole a pie from the seal since then.
Uh-huh. How did you come to meet the prophet?
My mom, me, and daddy wanted to see him.
They were hoping he would bless us so we would grow up to be something great. But those disciples of his, they shoot us away. They said, the Lord's too busy for him. Yeah.
I didn't cry or nothing.
Either you was crying or someone was drowning a mule. We's about to go on our way when the teacher says, hey, let those youngins come on up here. Did he know? The kingdom of heaven belongs to such as these. And he put us in his arms and he blessed us.
I ain't burp burp saying Stan. I've only been in 4 fights since then.
Kingdom of heaven. Don't that beat all? He says the kingdom of heaven belongs to such as us.
What do you think he meant by that?
Do I look like a philosopher to you? Who knows? He was always going on about it, though. The kingdom of heaven is near, he'd say. We all heard the stories about him, how he's going around performing miracles and teaching about how the kingdom of heaven doesn't quite look like what you'd expect. Last I heard, he just cast out a legion of demons and sent them into a herd of swine. That ain't the sort of thing I ever heard no other preacher do.
Let's see, this was in the Gerasenes, is that correct?
That's right. Now, this big muckety-muck, Jairus, he comes to see Jesus because, well, his daughter, she's dying, and he's begging Jesus to come heal her. He's on his way, and the crowd is pressing in on him. Everyone wants a miracle, you know. They just about crushed him.
You were in this crowd?
I was. I had this bleeding sickness for about 12 years, and was just hoping he could take the time to heal me too. But there's just so many people there. I mean, he's on his way to heal this dying girl. I ain't no one special. I didn't want to bother him with my troubles. He's so powerful and all. I just figured if I touched his coat, that'd be enough to heal me too, and he could be on his way.
Did you touch his coat, I mean?
I sure did. I snuck up behind him, and while the crowd was pressing in, touched his coat, and Well, you're not going to believe this, being a doctor and all. But I swear to you, that bleeding just stopped right then and there. And do you know what he does?
What?
He stops. He looks around and he asks who touched him. His buddies are like, everyone, in case you hadn't noticed, you're in a huge crowd. And he goes, no. I felt power go out from me. Someone touched me. My heart just about jumped out of my chest. I knew he was going to find me sooner or later. So I felt his feet and told him how I touched him, been healed, instantly. He stops where he's going. He changes his plans. He singles me out from the crowd. And he says, daughter, go in peace. For your faith has made you well.
Interesting. That seems to be a pattern in these stories. What happens next?
Well, I died.
Excuse me?
Yeah, I was dead. I don't know for how long, though.
Come on. You weren't really dead then, or we wouldn't be talking now.
Well, it's true. You can ask anyone who was there. My dad went to go find him, Jesus. The last thing I remember was him telling me that everything was going to be okay, that Jesus was going to make it all right. My last thought before I slipped away was, well, I couldn't believe he'd let me down.
But you're here now, so what happened?
Well, he happened. My daddy tells me that someone told him that I was gone and not to bother the teacher anymore, but Jesus came to see me anyway. Everyone was a-weeping and a-moaning and a-carrying on. Jesus told him to hush up. She ain't dead, he said. He's just sleeping. They all just laughed at him. But he took my hand and said, child, rise up. So, I did.
I'm sure that caused quite a stir.
Actually, no. He made my mama and daddy swear. He made them swear not to tell no one. And I wondered about that. If you're going to come in and shake up someone's world, rearrange all their grief into joy and happiness, why not take some credit for it? Lord knows we could all do with some happy news right now, right?
Lord knows.
But it doesn't always work out like that. Maybe he didn't want everyone to get their hopes up, thinking he's going to come around raising every dead son and daughter.
Well, why not? As a doctor, I have to wonder. If he has the power to heal every sickness, even bring back the dead to life, why not do it? Why not just heal everyone? Why not just make everything right?
I thought about that too. But you know what he said to me as soon as I came back to life?
What?
First thing he says to me after I come back from the depths of Hades is, you want something to eat? You see, I might have come back to life, but I'm still immortal. That's the thing about the miracles he did. Those people he healed, they're going to get sick again one day. Those people he fed, they'll get hungry again. And me? Well, I'm still going to die someday.
So why go around treating wounds with aspirin?
I suspect his plan goes a lot deeper than merely healing a few bodies or filling a few bellies. If you really listen to what he said, it seems he was able to build a whole kingdom where anything's possible.
So much for that. His plans for a kingdom would have died with him.
Well, I guess you ain't talked to old Clopas yet.
Well, my daddy named me Cleopas. Some folks call me Clopas. You can just call me, well, it don't matter none.
And my name's Mary. Nice to meet you.
How do the two of you know Jesus?
Well, we followed him around for some time, watching his miracles and listening to his preaching.
We weren't part of his inner circle or anything like that.
Don't sell us short, Cleo. We were definitely his disciples.
A mutual friend told me that you had quite an experience with him after his untimely demise.
I figured you was gonna ask about that. Yeah, it's the strangest thing. We were headed to Emmaus about 3 days after it all happened. Whew. No one was sure what to think. Here he done all these miracles, rode into Jerusalem, and we're all thinking, okay, here we go. It's time to overthrow Rome and get this kingdom of heaven started. He was arrested, tried, and then he dies. He just dies.
Needless to say, we were all a bit confused, to say the least. Clopas and I were on our way to Emmaus, just talking about all that had happened, when a stranger joined us on the road and asked what we was a-jawing about.
I may have not been a bit uncharitable in my last response.
Cleo let him have it. He said, boy, you must have been living in a barn not to have heard everything that's been going on these past few days. The stranger looks clueless as a post. And Cleo goes on, Jesus of Nazareth, he said, he was a prophet, powerful in word and deed, but our brilliant leaders put him to death.
Well, I mean, we had hoped he'd be the one who was going to save Israel. And here it was, the third day since all that business took place. I went on and told him about how some of the women had gone to the tomb and found it empty, ranting and raving about angels or something, claiming Jesus was alive. I mean, you can't blame me for thinking they is fools.
What did he say? The stranger, that is.
He just shakes his head real slow. My. How foolish you are. How slow to believe all the prophets have said. Didn't you know the Messiah had to suffer all these things and then enter his glory?
So he tells us, starting with Moses and all them prophets, just what the scripture said about the Messiah and how we got it all wrong. Dr. Luke, it's 7 miles from Jerusalem to Emmaus. That's 7 miles of crow we ate, walking with him.
But oh, how our hearts burned within us while we talked. We got there, he acted like he was going to go on further. The sun was going down, and I needn't tell you what these roads are like at night. So we invited him in for supper.
That's when it all happened. We were just about to eat when he took the bread, gave thanks, and broke it. And we recognized him.
Jesus.
Sure as I'm speaking with you now, Dr. Luke, there he was, back from the dead.
And then he vanished, gone without a trace.
Now that's quite a story.
A story not everyone believes, but it's true. We'd gone into Jerusalem expecting Jesus to rally the people and kick Caesar out of town. But our hopes and dreams were dashed to pieces when they nailed him to that cross.
But now, we know that he's alive. We got new hopes and new dreams. We got a new vision of a new kind of king and a new kind of kingdom that he builds. This one ain't founded on the blood of our enemies, but on the blood of our innocent Savior. It don't prosper by might nor by wealth, but by humility and justice for the poor. And the only revolution that it needs to begin is the one that starts here.
I don't understand.
Logically lead, and this trail you're on, it only leads to one conclusion. Jesus was more than a man. He was more than a prophet, more than a preacher, more than a king, and he came to build more than a kingdom. He is God, God with us, not God somewhere far off watching and waiting with a lightning bolt for when you step out of line. Not God someday later when things get better. God in the mess today, God in the grief, here and now, God with us. And if God is with us, and he has walked, if God is real and he has walked among us, then nothing else matters. Nothing else but to know him, to follow him, no matter how plans may change.
for shelter and rest. When the floods pull me under, you fill me with bread. When for your sake I suffer, I am happy and blessed. And I fear no evil in the valley of death. And I'm humble and thwarted, and I fail every test. When a friend has departed to memory's death. When I look broken-hearted on the trouble ahead, I will fear no evil in the valley of death. When I'm poor and forsaken, I will find in you wealth. When my table is vacant, your word is my bread. Every day I awaken in the place where you led, where I fear no evil in the valley of death. Oh, the Lord is my shepherd, He is good every step. Who His mercy can measure or fathom its breadth. He has freed every debtor, every promise He's kept. So I fear no evil in the valley of death. From the first light of morning to the place where it stands, I will fear no evil in the valley of death. No, I fear no evil in the valley of death.
And with that, we'd like to thank you for coming out to hear this fine tale.
If you missed anything, you can always watch it again on one of them fancy computer boxes they got these days. Find our show on YouTube, Facebook, and coryell.church.
Now let us conclude our time together with one final word from Pastor Daniel. Pastor, if you would, give us one more good word before we head out into the ceaseless joys of this beauteous season.
Thank you, Amos. I appreciate that. And I want to thank each of you for coming out today and going on this wild ride with us. It was a ride that started, I guess, last summer, and it has taken a few turns and bumps along the way.
But this would not be possible without all the people that work so hard. All of our cast back out on stage, if you'll come out. And for those that were behind the scenes, all of our crew, would you stand where you're at? We want to, here they come. So many people worked to make this happen. And you can see along back here too our crew. But how about we give them a round of applause for all their sacrifice, their dedication. Thank you guys. Great job. And since they worked so hard this morning, I will promise I will not preach to you today. You can give that a round of applause too. But if you desire that a little more, then you can come to the Christmas Eve service. We've got two of them. They'll be kind of similar to one another, but 5 and 7 on Christmas Eve. And it'll be a candlelight service. I'll say a word a little shorter than I normally do, but it will be a special time together. And we will light this 5th and final Advent candle we call the Christ candle on that evening. which will mark the beginning of Christmas. But today is the 4th Sunday of Advent. So I want to conclude by having my wife Danielle and my youngest, my son Abel, coming up here to join me. I told him I was lighting candles, and Abel likes fire, so I thought we'd give this a shot. But Abel, will you go ahead and light the joy candle for us? While he does that, I just want to mention that throughout this season, we've been going through a series of sermons called the Songs of Christmas, and you've been hearing songs that were sung by Mary and Zachariah and the angels. And where we go? At the news of Jesus, at the news of Jesus being born, and all that news brought about peace and hope and love, but also joy. And you saw joy mentioned in that interaction between Elizabeth and Mary, or Lizzie as we've called her. And I'm going to just read that to you. We're told that in Luke chapter 1, verse 43 through 45, that Elizabeth, who was pregnant with John the Baptist, was interacting with Mary, who was pregnant with Jesus. And I quote here, "Why am I so honored that the mother of my Lord should visit me? When I heard your greeting, the baby, John, in my womb jumped for joy. You were blessed because you believed that the Lord would do what he said." And I love this because it just goes to show that no one is ever too young or too old to begin experiencing the joy that Jesus offers. John the Baptist and Elizabeth both focused their hearts and minds on Jesus, and thus they were filled with joy. So as you leave here today, I hope we see you on Christmas Eve, but if we don't, I don't know what's occupying your heart, your mind this Christmas, but I just want to say that if it's filled with thoughts of parties and presents and Santa and decorations, all those things are fine. But if that's all it's focused on, then your joy will only last as long as those things do. Focus your thoughts on your problems and your worries, maybe your income or lack thereof it, your health, or illnesses that you're facing, then joy will continue to go missing. But if you set your heart and mind on Jesus and his goodness, then you'll experience true joy, and you'll begin to sing for joy. So as you stand to leave, this is my prayer for you, and it's really the same as the Apostle Paul's was to the Colossians in Colossians chapter. May you be filled with joy, always thanking the Father. He has enabled you to share in the inheritance that belongs to his people who live in the light. Now go in the joy of Christ, and all God's people will say, amen. God bless you.